David Thornton had everything most people dream of. He was the owner of a successful tech empire, a billionaire with a reputation for getting things done. His days were filled with meetings, business deals, and constant travel. But behind the wealth and power, there was a side of David that few ever saw. David's life had been turned upside down when his wife, Victoria, passed away unexpectedly. She had been his rock, his partner, and the love of his life. Their son, Ethan, was born just a year before her passing. Ethan was born with severe disabilities, and from the moment he was born, David's world had been different. Every day was a challenge, but it was also a reminder of how precious life was, even in its most difficult moments. Ethan's disabilities meant he needed constant care. David tried his best to take care of him, but it was a struggle. No matter how hard he worked, no matter how many hours he spent on his business, he couldn't escape the guilt that haunted him. His son needed him, but David couldn't be there for him the way a father should. Ethan's condition meant that he couldn't do many of the things that other kids could. He couldn't play sports, couldn't run, couldn't talk or do many of the basic things that children his age would enjoy. David often found himself feeling helpless and frustrated. He loved his son dearly, but there were moments when he didn't know what to do. It was in these moments that David decided to hire help. He needed someone who could give Ethan the care and attention he deserved. Someone who could be with him when David couldn't. After an extensive search, David hired Maya, a young woman who had experience in caregiving. She had come highly recommended by others who had worked with her, and David hoped she would be the person who could make a difference in Ethan's life. Maya was in her early 20s. She came from a working-class background and had a passion for helping others. She had grown up in a small neighborhood, where her family had always struggled financially. Maya had worked several jobs throughout her life to support her family, but her real love was in caregiving. She had always known that she was meant to help people, especially those in need. Maya had heard of David Thornton, the wealthy tech mogul, but never imagined she would be hired by him. She didn't think someone like him would need someone like her. But when she met Ethan, she quickly saw that he was just a boy in need of love and care, just like any other child. She didn't see a billionaire's son, she saw a little boy who needed a friend. The first day Maya arrived at the Thornton home, she was nervous but excited. She had heard stories of David Thornton's success and wealth, and the idea of working for someone so powerful was intimidating. But when she walked into the home, all of her worries faded. Ethan greeted her with a shy smile, his big brown eyes filled with curiosity. David was in the living room, watching the interaction from a distance. He had been busy in the office, but something told him to stop and watch for a moment. As Maya gently sat next to Ethan, she started talking to him, asking him about his day and making him feel comfortable. Maya didn't treat Ethan like a patient or a project. She treated him like a person, as if he was just another child. Her voice was soft, her smile warm, and for the first time in a long time, David saw his son smile back in return. As Maya began feeding Ethan, David couldn't help but watch. It was something so simple, yet it was a moment that struck him deeply. Maya wasn't just feeding Ethan, she was talking to him, making him feel like he mattered. It wasn't just the physical act of feeding him, it was the emotional connection she was building. She treated him with such care, and for the first time in a long while, David felt like Ethan wasn't just a burden he had to bear. David had hired caregivers before, but something about Maya was different. She wasn't just doing a job, she was connecting with his son. David had always been busy with his work, and he hadn't realized how much of a gap there was in his relationship with Ethan. He loved his son, of course, but he had been so focused on his career and the pressures of life that he hadn't been able to truly connect with him. He had been too distant, too preoccupied. Seeing Maya with Ethan reminded him of what he had been missing. The bond between Maya and Ethan seemed to grow each day. She would talk to him about his favorite animals, play music, and gently engage him in activities that he enjoyed. Ethan responded to her in ways David hadn't seen before. He was more animated, more engaged, and seemed to be thriving under her care. David, however, didn't know how to express what he was feeling. He had always been independent, a man who solved problems on his own, but this was different. This wasn't something that could be solved with money or status. He had the wealth to provide for Ethan's needs, but he realized that wasn't enough. He was missing something deeper, a connection, a bond, something that Maya seemed to understand instinctively. Maya had no idea what she had done to make such an impact on David. She was simply doing what she loved, giving Ethan the attention and care he deserved. But David saw something in her that went beyond her caregiving skills. It was her warmth, her ability to make Ethan feel valued and understood, that was truly remarkable. As days passed, David found himself spending more time at home, watching Maya and Ethan together. He started to realize how much he had missed in Ethan's life. There was a world of emotions and experiences he hadn't been part of. His focus on work had blinded him to the importance of emotional connection, the little moments that meant so much. David was at a crossroads. He knew he needed to be more present in Ethan's life, but he wasn't sure how to bridge the gap. He hadn't been able to do it on his own, but maybe Maya, with her natural ability to care and connect, could show him the way. As the days turned into weeks, David began to change. He started to look at life through a different lens. Maya had given him more than just a caregiver for Ethan, she had opened his eyes to what truly mattered. Family. Love. Connection. It wasn't about the wealth or the business empire, it was about the people who shared your life and the bonds you created with them. Maya, in her quiet and unassuming way, had changed everything. As days turned into weeks, Maya's role in Ethan's life grew more significant. She was no longer just a caregiver, she became a constant presence, someone Ethan could rely on for comfort, companionship, and care. Maya's approach to Ethan was unlike any other caregiver he had had before. She didn't see his disability as a barrier, she saw it as a challenge to help him reach his potential. David continued to observe Maya's interactions with Ethan from a distance, but he found himself more and more drawn to the way she treated his son. She wasn't just doing her job, she was genuinely invested in Ethan's well-being. Maya had a way of speaking to Ethan, even though he couldn't talk back, that made him feel heard. She would ask him questions, tell him stories, and often play his favorite music. Each time she spoke to him, Ethan's eyes would light up with a smile, as if he could understand and appreciate the love she was giving him. David began to notice that Ethan was thriving in ways he had never seen before. His son's facial expressions became more animated, his eyes brighter, and his reactions more engaged. It was as if Maya was unlocking a side of Ethan that David had never been able to access. This realization was both heartwarming and painful for David. For so long, he had believed that his success and financial support were enough to ensure his son's happiness. But as he watched Maya, he saw that true connection, not wealth, was what Ethan needed most. Maya, on the other hand, had quickly fallen in love with Ethan. She didn't just care for him out of duty, but because she truly cared for him as a person. Ethan, despite his disabilities, had a spirit that Maya admired. He was a fighter, someone who had endured so much, yet never stopped trying. Maya would often talk to him about her dreams and the life she had come from. She told him about her family, about the struggles she had faced growing up, and about her desire to make a difference in the world. In many ways, she felt that helping Ethan was part of her mission to give back and make the world a better place. David had always thought that wealth and success were the keys to everything. He had built his empire on the idea that money could fix problems, that it could make life easier. But watching Maya and Ethan together, he began to question that belief. Maya wasn't rich in terms of money, but she was rich in heart. She gave Ethan something that David couldn't, unconditional love and support. It wasn't about what she could buy him or what she could provide, it was about how she made him feel. Maya treated Ethan like he was the most important person in the world, and that made all the difference. David's guilt grew as he realized how much he had neglected his son. He had been so focused on his career and building his wealth that he hadn't spent enough time with Ethan. He knew that he had to do something to change that. He started spending more time at home, trying to be present for Ethan, but it wasn't easy. Ethan had formed a strong bond with Maya, and David felt like an outsider at times. He knew he had to earn Ethan's trust again, but he wasn't sure where to start. One evening, after a long day of work, David found himself in the living room, watching Maya and Ethan together. Maya was sitting on the floor next to Ethan, gently singing a lullaby as she helped him with his speech therapy exercises. David stood in the doorway, unnoticed, for a moment, just watching the two of them. He saw how patient and kind Maya was with Ethan, how she made sure he felt valued and understood. David felt a pang of envy. He had always prided himself on being the provider, the one who made sure Ethan had everything he needed, but in that moment, he realized that it wasn't enough. Money couldn't replace the love and attention Maya was giving Ethan. It was a harsh truth, but one that David needed to hear. Later that night, David sat down with Maya after Ethan had gone to bed. It was the first time he had really spoken to her outside of the context of their work relationship. He wanted to understand what made her so special with Ethan, why she seemed to have such a unique connection with his son. Maya, David began, his voice softer than usual, I've been watching you with Ethan. You've made such a difference in his life. I don't know how to thank you. Maya smiled, her eyes warm with understanding. I'm just doing my job, David. It's what I love to do. I know Ethan, and I know how to work with him. I see the potential in him, even when others might overlook it. David nodded slowly, feeling a lump form in his throat. I've been so focused on my business, my empire. I thought if I just worked hard enough, if I could give Ethan everything he needed, it would be enough. But it's not. I've been neglecting him, and I'm sorry. Maya placed a hand on his shoulder, offering him a comforting smile. You're here now. That's what matters. It's never too late to change, David. David was struck by her words. For the first time in a long time, he felt like someone understood him, that someone believed in his ability to be a better father. Maya had a way of making people feel like they could be more than they were, and that was a gift he hadn't realized he needed. As the weeks went by, David started to spend more time with Ethan. He began attending some of Ethan's therapy sessions and reading to him at night. He wasn't perfect, and he knew that, but he was trying. Maya was there to guide him, not in a judgmental way, but with gentle encouragement. She didn't push him too hard, but she made sure that he was involved in Ethan's life in a meaningful way. David's relationship with Ethan began to grow, though it was slow at first. He would sit beside his son, talking to him, telling him stories about his day, and playing simple games. Ethan responded in his own way, his face lighting up when he saw his father trying. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't always perfect, but David was determined to do better. Maya, too, noticed the change. She saw how David was slowly but surely becoming more present in Ethan's life, and it made her heart swell with pride. She didn't need recognition for what she was doing, seeing Ethan happy and thriving was enough for her. But she couldn't deny the satisfaction she felt in knowing that she had helped both David and Ethan find their way back to each other. As time passed, the bond between David, Maya, and Ethan grew stronger. Maya continued to be Ethan's steady companion, helping him navigate his world with love and patience. David was slowly rebuilding his relationship with his son, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something right. Maya's role in their lives had gone beyond being just a caregiver. She had become a guiding light for both father and son. The way she showed love, patience, and understanding had changed everything for them. David was beginning to realize that sometimes, the greatest gifts in life weren't material things. They were the moments spent with the people you loved, the bonds you built, and the lives you changed along the way. As the weeks turned into months, David began to see the world around him through a different lens. It wasn't just about success or money anymore. He had always believed that wealth could solve any problem, that his success would provide everything his son needed. But now, he realized how wrong he had been. Ethan needed more than just material things. He needed time, love, and emotional support, things that couldn't be bought. David had started spending more time at home, trying to be more involved with Ethan. But despite his best efforts, there was something he hadn't yet been able to do. He hadn't been able to connect with his son in the way that Maya had. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't replicate the bond Maya seemed to have with Ethan. Her calm demeanor, her ability to communicate with Ethan even when words weren't enough, was something David couldn't imitate. One evening, after a particularly long and exhausting day of meetings, David found himself sitting alone in his office. He looked out the window at the sprawling city below, his mind racing with thoughts of his business, his empire, and his son. He had built his entire life around success, but now, sitting in the quiet of his office, he felt empty. He thought about Maya and how she had entered their lives like a breath of fresh air, making everything feel brighter, more hopeful. He thought about Ethan, who was slowly but surely becoming more expressive, more active in his own world. He realized that Maya had been the one to bring that out in Ethan, not his money, not his resources. It was Maya's love and patience that had made the difference. David had always been a man who prided himself on being in control. He had built his company from the ground up, and every deal, every business decision, had been carefully calculated. But with Ethan, he had always felt like he was failing. He couldn't fix what was broken in his son the way he could fix a business problem. And that realization had left him feeling powerless. He had watched Maya work with Ethan for so long, and the way she interacted with him had shown David what he had been missing. It wasn't about doing things for Ethan, it was about being there for him. It was about seeing him for who he was, not for his disabilities. Maya treated Ethan like a normal child, as if he could achieve anything with the right guidance and support. It wasn't about pitying him for his limitations, it was about celebrating the little victories, the progress, no matter how small. David's thoughts were interrupted when Maya walked into his office. She had come to check in on Ethan and make sure he was settled for the night. But she also knew that David had been struggling. She had seen it in his eyes, the frustration, the guilt. She had seen him try, time and time again, to make up for the years he had missed with his son. And while Maya admired his efforts, she also knew that the answer wasn't in trying harder, it was in understanding more deeply. Maya, David said, looking up at her, I've been thinking a lot. About Ethan. About everything. Maya smiled gently, taking a seat across from him. I can tell. You've been working hard to be there for him. I'm trying, David admitted, his voice heavy with emotion. But I don't think I'm doing it right. I feel like I'm failing him. Maya shook her head. You're not failing him, David. You're just learning. It's a process. David let out a sigh, feeling the weight of the past few months settle on his shoulders. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I thought if I just worked harder, if I just gave him everything he needed, things would get better. But I was wrong. Maya leaned forward, her voice calm and reassuring. It's not about giving him everything, David. It's about being there. About showing up, every day, no matter how hard it gets. David looked at her, his eyes filled with doubt. But I'm not good at this. I don't know how to connect with him like you do. Maya smiled softly. You don't have to do it like me. You just have to do it like you. Ethan doesn't need you to be perfect. He just needs you to be present. David thought about her words. It felt like a light bulb had gone off in his head. For so long, he had been trying to fix everything. He had been trying to control the situation, to find the right solution, the perfect way to help his son. But what Maya was telling him was that there wasn't a perfect solution. There was just love. There was just presence. Ethan didn't need a perfect father, he needed a father who was there, who was willing to try, even when it was difficult. Over the next few weeks, David began to change. He started to approach his relationship with Ethan with a new perspective. Instead of focusing on the things that Ethan couldn't do, he focused on the things he could do. They would sit together, reading books, playing simple games, or just talking. David stopped trying to fix everything and started enjoying the moments they shared. He didn't need to be the perfect father, he just needed to be there, to show Ethan that he loved him, no matter what. Maya noticed the change in David. She could see that he was starting to let go of his guilt and his need for perfection. He was becoming more relaxed with Ethan, more patient, more understanding. It wasn't a sudden transformation, but it was progress. Maya was proud of him. She had always believed in David, but now she saw him starting to believe in himself as a father. One afternoon, David and Maya took Ethan to the park. It was a small park, nothing fancy, but it was one of Ethan's favorite places. They pushed him on the swing, laughing as he giggled, his face lighting up with joy. For the first time in a long time, David felt at peace. He wasn't thinking about his business or his success, he was just enjoying being with his son. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. David looked at Maya, his heart full. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything. You've helped me see what really matters." Maya smiled, her eyes soft. "You've always had it in you, David. You just needed to find your way." David nodded, understanding now that the way forward wasn't about fixing what was broken. It was about embracing the imperfections, about being there for Ethan in the way he needed. It wasn't about money or success, it was about love, patience, and understanding. As they left the park that day, David knew that he was on the right path. It wasn't going to be easy, but he was ready. He was ready to be the father Ethan needed, not the father he thought he should be. And with Maya's guidance, he knew they could face whatever challenges came next, together. Over the next few months, the connection between David, Maya, and Ethan continued to grow stronger. David had transformed into the father he had always hoped to be, thanks to Maya's quiet encouragement. He was no longer the distant businessman but a present father, learning from Maya how to truly connect with his son. Ethan, in turn, blossomed under their care, showing more signs of progress than David had ever dared to imagine. But even as their family life grew closer, Maya's world was still filled with the struggles of everyday life. She loved taking care of Ethan, but her work as a caregiver was still just a job. She had financial pressures, including helping her younger brother, Jamal, who had been struggling in school. Maya tried to balance it all, but at times, the weight of her responsibilities felt overwhelming. Maya had always dreamed of doing more. She wanted to give back to others, to help those who were struggling, just as she had been given a chance to care for Ethan. She often thought about going back to school, pursuing a degree in healthcare, and one day opening her own center to support families like Ethan's. But her dream seemed so far out of reach. How could she go back to school while helping her family? How could she ever build a future when she was struggling to make ends meet in the present? One evening, as Maya helped David put Ethan to bed, David could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She had been working hard, both caring for Ethan and balancing the pressures of her own life. There was something about the way she carried herself, her quiet strength, her willingness to give everything for others that made David realize that she deserved more. She deserved more than just a paycheck for taking care of Ethan. She deserved to have the opportunity to chase her own dreams, to build a future for herself, and to continue the work that was so important to her. David sat with Maya in the living room after Ethan was asleep, wanting to talk to her about something that had been on his mind. He looked at her carefully, noticing how the exhaustion seemed to weigh down on her. He respected her strength, but he also saw the potential in her, a potential that went beyond caregiving. Maya, David began, his voice a little hesitant, I've been thinking a lot about you lately. Maya looked at him curiously, wondering where the conversation was heading. What do you mean? David took a deep breath. You've been helping Ethan, and you've been helping me in ways I can't even express. But I've also noticed that you've been putting a lot of your own dreams on hold. You're working so hard, and yet, I don't think you've ever had the opportunity to truly pursue what you want to do. And that's not right. Maya was quiet for a moment, not sure where this conversation was going. I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm fine. I'm doing what I love, and that's enough. David shook his head. No, Maya. You deserve more than just getting by. You deserve to have the opportunity to build your future, to follow your dreams. And I want to help you with that. Maya blinked in surprise. David, I don't understand. I'm just doing my job. I'm happy to be here for Ethan, and that's enough for me. David smiled, his eyes filled with sincerity. I've seen what you've done for Ethan, what you've done for me. You've transformed both of our lives. You're giving Ethan something that money can't buy. And I want to help you in return. I've started a foundation. A foundation to support people like you, people who are dedicating their lives to helping others. I want to offer you a position there, a full-time job with a salary that will allow you to take care of yourself, your family, and also help you pursue your dreams. Maya's eyes widened in shock. David, I don't know what to say. That's too much. I can't accept that. You've already done so much for us. David gently shook his head. You deserve it, Maya. You've given so much of yourself to others. It's time for you to focus on your future. I want to help you take that next step. The foundation can offer you the resources you need to not only care for Ethan but to also make a difference in the world. And if you want to go back to school or start your own program to help others, I want to support you in that. Maya felt tears welling up in her eyes as she heard David's words. She had never expected this. She had never imagined that someone like David, with so much power and wealth, would believe in her so deeply. She had always felt like she was working just to survive, never imagining that one day she could be in a position to do something truly meaningful with her life. I don't know what to say, Maya whispered, her voice filled with emotion. I've never had anyone believe in me like that before. David smiled, his eyes kind and understanding. You've earned it, Maya. You've shown me what real strength looks like. And I know this foundation will give you the platform you need to help others the way you've helped us. Maya sat in stunned silence, processing what David had just offered her. It felt like a dream, something too good to be true. But at the same time, she knew it was a chance she couldn't pass up. David's offer wasn't just about money, it was about an opportunity to build something meaningful, something that could change her life and the lives of others. I'll accept, she finally said, her voice filled with both excitement and fear. But only if I can help others the way I've helped Ethan. I want to make sure that others get the same chance I've had. David nodded, a look of admiration in his eyes. Of course. That's exactly what this foundation is all about. Over the following weeks, Maya officially became the first employee of the foundation. She was given the freedom to pursue her own goals, while also having the resources and support she needed to continue helping Ethan. But perhaps the most important thing was that she had the opportunity to build her future. She enrolled in courses to further her education in healthcare, with the long-term goal of opening her own center to help children like Ethan, children with disabilities who needed love, care, and a chance to thrive. As Maya's life began to change, so did her relationship with David. He had given her more than just a job. He had given her the freedom to follow her passion, the chance to give back in ways she had never dreamed possible. Maya became an integral part of the foundation, using her experience with Ethan to create programs that supported families in similar situations. David, too, continued to grow and learn. He had seen Maya's potential long before she had, and now, with the foundation's success, he was able to see the full impact of her work. He knew that by supporting Maya, he had not only helped her build a future but had also made a lasting impact on countless others. Maya's life was no longer defined by the struggles of her past. She had become a beacon of hope for others, just as she had been for Ethan. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that with David's support, there was no limit to what she could achieve. The days turned into months, and the changes in Maya's life became even more apparent. Her acceptance of the position in David's foundation had been the start of something much greater. Not only had it opened doors for her that she had never imagined, but it had also allowed her to fulfill a lifelong dream, helping others, in a way that was truly impactful. Maya was no longer just Ethan's caregiver, she was now a leader in a movement that was changing the lives of many families. David had given her more than just a job. He had given her a platform, the freedom to grow, and the chance to create something meaningful. Maya felt an immense responsibility now, knowing that the foundation was not only supporting her but was also giving her the tools to make a difference in the world. She began using her experience with Ethan and her newfound knowledge from the courses she had taken to design programs that could help families with children who had disabilities. It wasn't easy, and it required a lot of hard work, but Maya was more motivated than ever. She felt a deep sense of purpose when she saw families benefiting from the programs she had created. The joy in their eyes as they saw their children thriving, the gratitude they expressed for the support they were receiving, it was the most rewarding experience of Maya's life. She had always known she was meant to help others, but now she had the tools and the resources to make that dream a reality. And it wasn't just about the children, it was about the families. It was about giving them the hope and support they needed to navigate the challenges they faced every day. David, too, saw the transformation in Maya. He watched as she poured her heart into the foundation, working tirelessly to ensure its success. He could see the difference in her, how much more confident she had become, how passionate she was about her work. At times, he would sit back and reflect on how far they had come since Maya first started working with Ethan. He had hired her to care for his son, but she had given him something far more valuable, a sense of connection, a reminder that family and love were the most important things in life. David had also changed, but in a more subtle way. He no longer saw wealth and success as the ultimate goal. Instead, he began to value the connections he had with the people in his life. He spent more time with Ethan, no longer the distant father he had once been. His relationship with his son had flourished, and Ethan's progress continued to amaze him. Maya had not only transformed Ethan's life but had also helped David realize what truly mattered. As Maya's confidence grew, so did her dreams. She began to think more about the future and what she wanted to achieve next. She had always wanted to go back to school to earn a degree in healthcare, but the burden of caring for her family and working multiple jobs had always kept her from pursuing it. Now, with the support of the foundation and the resources she had gained, Maya enrolled in a program that would allow her to earn her degree. It wasn't easy, and it required balancing work and school, but Maya was determined to make it happen. She was building her future, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she was on the right path. David was proud of her. He had seen her start as a young woman with big dreams but no clear way of achieving them. Now, he saw her as a leader, a woman who was not only changing her own life but also the lives of many others. David supported Maya's education, helping her with anything she needed, but he never treated her as though she owed him anything. He wanted to see her succeed, and he knew that her success would benefit not just her, but everyone she helped through the foundation. As Maya's work continued to grow, so did the impact of the foundation. The programs she had developed were expanding, and the foundation was gaining recognition in the community. Families who had once felt isolated now had a support system that they could turn to, and it was all thanks to Maya's vision and hard work. She had turned her passion for caregiving into something that was transforming lives, and in doing so, she had found the fulfillment she had always been searching for. One afternoon, as Maya sat in her office, looking over some new proposals for the foundation, David walked in. He had a look of excitement on his face, and Maya knew immediately that something important was happening. "Maya," David said, his voice filled with enthusiasm, "we've been offered a partnership with a national healthcare organization. They want to help expand the programs you've developed. They're impressed with the work you've done, and they believe in your vision. This could mean the foundation will be able to reach thousands of families in need." Maya's heart raced as she processed the news. This was the kind of opportunity she had always dreamed of, an opportunity to take her work to the next level and make an even bigger impact. But she didn't want to get ahead of herself. She had worked hard for every small victory, and this felt like the culmination of years of dedication. "I can't believe it," Maya said, her voice filled with awe. "This is everything we've worked for. This will change everything for the families we help." David smiled, proud of everything Maya had accomplished. "It's all because of you, Maya. You've done the hard work. You've earned this. And now, you'll be able to reach more people than ever before." For the first time in a long while, Maya felt as though everything was falling into place. She had come so far from where she had started, unsure of what the future would hold. But now, she was confident that she was exactly where she needed to be. Over the next few months, the partnership with the healthcare organization brought a new level of growth to the foundation. The programs Maya had developed expanded to more cities, and the impact was immeasurable. Families who had once felt alone in their struggles now had a network of support and resources that allowed them to thrive. Maya's dream of helping others was becoming a reality, and she was doing it with the same love and dedication that had guided her work with Ethan. David continued to support Maya, both professionally and personally. Their relationship had deepened over time, from a simple professional connection to a genuine friendship based on mutual respect. David had watched Maya transform from a young woman trying to find her way into a leader who was changing lives. He had seen firsthand the power of her love and her passion, and he knew that she was only just getting started. For Maya, the future was now filled with possibilities. She had built something meaningful, not just for herself, but for countless others. She had found her purpose, and with David's support, she was on her way to achieving everything she had ever dreamed of. And as for David, he had learned that the greatest rewards in life weren't found in business deals or financial success. They were found in the connections we make, the love we share, and the difference we can make in the lives of others. Through Maya's guidance, he had learned to appreciate the simple, yet profound, joys of being a father, a friend, and a supporter of the people who mattered most.